welcome to the channel. In today's video I thought I would go over sharpening just a little bit. So I brought out a knife here that I picked up at a local antique store. It's a Frost more of Sweden carbon steel clipper model here. Very cool. It's not real dull, but it could use a little tuning up, so I'm going to do that here today and go over sharpening by using this as a little example. So we'll get into that here in a minute, but first thing I want to do is talk about just for a couple of minutes about the types of things that I like to use when I am sharpening, whether it's in the field, at home, at a base camp setup, whatever the case may be, wherever I might be at. These are the things I like to use. So I am a big fan of DMT, diamond machining technology, and these three right here are all DMT diamond sharpeners here, and they are color coded, which is always convenient. And I have a few here. This one is just a single one, that is an extra coarse right there, and this one is a double with extra coarse on one side, being black, and coarse, which is blue, on the other side there. Here I have a double-sided one that is coarse and fine. So these are great for quick touch-ups or for getting rid of serious issues in the blade by using the extra coarse. And so the extra coarse is not something that I would probably carry out into the field if I were taking everything with me, but I would take something like this, which is the coarse and the fine, and this would take care of almost anything that I think might come up. Might just take a little bit longer to get it done if I seriously damaged a blade. So that's what I would take out in the field for coarse material removal. And even the fine on this diamond sharpener is relatively coarse just because diamond cuts so fast. So still a bit coarse there, but definitely serviceable just as is. If you just stop with the fine, good to go. It's a really nice edge. Next step after that, if I wanted a more refined edge, would be to use this Spyderco double stuff here, the gray side being a more coarse ceramic and the white being a more fine ceramic. And I'm using the air quotations there because there's really no good way that I'm aware of to actually grade ceramic into a number, or really even into coarse versus fine, but using these, this one does cut just a little bit faster and this one cuts a little bit slower. Really fine edges that you can get off of these right here. And if I want to go one step further, a little field strop here, and you can see this one's been used quite a bit. It's got a lot of black on there from removing material, but it still works. So I haven't put more compound on that yet. And then finally, this is usually a first step, especially if I'm skipping the diamond and going straight to one of these options to just keep the edge tuned up real well, is a rust eraser block. And if you notice on this edge, it's been used and been laying around for quite a while. It's kind of dirty on the actual bevel, and I wouldn't want to get all that dirt into the pores on this ceramic stone here. So use a rust eraser here and just get rid of all of that that's on the edge. I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick and then show both sides, and hopefully it'll actually show up in the video, the difference between the two sides once I get this cleaned off. This is also really good for just general rust and corrosion removal on any part of a knife or an axe or a saw or anything like that, but on this one I'm only going to use it on the bevel because I want to leave all of this on the blade. It's gotten a fair patina over the years, looks like, so I'm going to leave that on there and just clean off the bevel. And that looks about good enough there. One final thing that I sometimes take with me when I'm going out in my sharpening kit is just a blue shop towel, like a heavy duty paper towel. And that's nice just to be able to wipe off whatever may collect on the steel while I'm sharpening it and cleaning it. Right, so I'm gonna hold this up and hopefully I'll put my hand back there so maybe it'll focus in better. There's the dirty side and there's the clean side of the bevel. Hopefully you can see the difference there. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and do this other side and make sure everything's how I want, and I'll be back momentarily to get into the process of tuning this blade up. Okay, so I've got it all cleaned up the way I want now. Looks pretty good. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump into actually sharpening this thing. And I'm feeling like I could probably skip this step, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just to make sure everything's nice and even on the bevel. And I'm going to use this coarse sharpener here. And all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to hold it like so, with the blade facing away from me, cutting edge up in the air. And I'm going to place this diamond sharpener on here and just go in nice little circles, starting at the heel of the blade, making my way all the way out to the point. And you may notice as I'm doing this, I'm going to turn this way just a little bit. As I'm doing this, I start here, it's facing pretty well, the sharpener is facing pretty well straight up. As I make my way out, I tend to kind of point the sharpener the same direction as the blade, and I find that does a little bit better job of getting right up there at the tip of the blade and keeping that angle nice and even. And this is something I especially do on a Scandinavian grind, as this knife has. With other grind types, especially like a flat grind or a hollow grind, I don't always do that, but with the Scandi, I find that works pretty well to have that facing up just like that. And just work along there. And I'm getting pretty consistent scratches here. And I'm going to go ahead and take my little blue shop towel here, wipe that off. And I've got nice consistent scratches all the way down. And they're showing up all the way from the top of the bevel all the way down to almost the cutting edge. So I'm going to say that's pretty good on that side. And now I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to hold it just like this. And this can be sort of odd to hold a knife this way, but I find it works really well and it's nice and stable. So I'm going to hold the knife just like that, and I'm going to keep it out away from me, obviously, because the pointy part is facing toward me, so I'm going to keep that out away from me pretty good. And I'm just going to hold that just like that and do the same process all the way out to the tip. Get my hand back out of the way there. All the way out there, just like that. Making sure everything's lined up nice and even there. And one of the reasons I like to do this with the cutting edge facing up and looking down on it like that is I can watch and see when that closes in right there. And once that closes in and there's pretty close to the cutting edge, I know my angle is doing pretty good, and so then I can start making the motions to actually remove that metal from the blade and make it sharper. And when you're doing this, you will see a little slight black line that shows up between the blade and the sharpening surface, and as you lean that sharpener over into the blade or the blade into the sharpener, either way, that line pretty much disappears if you're on the correct angle for getting to the apex of that cutting edge. And that looks pretty good, and I'm just gonna leave it at that and move on to the finer sharpening surface here. So I'm just going to continue that same process for just a minute, doing the circles, and I'll come back to you in just a minute when I get to the next step that I'm going to do with this. So I believe I've gotten everything done that I want to do with the circular motions there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this on here, and with this part of the sharpening process, I don't really look down like this. I prefer to look this way, and I just go back and forth, and with it laying, with the knife laying on its side like this, I can watch the scratch pattern change from circular to linear, going from heel to tip. Nice straight lines of scratches, and I can get a nice smooth bevel right there, just going back and forth just like this. Right out there on the tip. Make sure I'm getting the whole thing. That looks pretty good. I like the looks of that. Oh. And you do have to be careful not to poke yourself when you do this. You notice my fingers behind the blade here when I do this, because when you saw I slipped, my finger was nice and safe away from the point of that knife. Might not have looked like it on the video, but my finger was nice and safe. One of the things I really like about using these diamond sharpeners is you can use them dry or wet or whatever you feel like, and it does not matter. I usually use them dry and just wipe off the material that builds up, and every so often, if I feel like it needs it, I can give them a quick wash or a quick rinse with some water and clean off all of the built up material that's collected over time. And I'm seeing that up here at the top I have made it to the apex of the cutting edge, but right down in this section right here, still missing just a little bit, so I'm going to focus my attention on that particular area. And what I'm going to do is raise up the sharpener just slightly, so I can take off the corner where I have been sharpening and the apex meet. There's a little bit of a bevel right there that has formed, so I'm going to take off that corner just a little bit, and then I will lay the sharpener back down to the angle I've been using. That covers the entire bevel here, and should be good to go. Yeah, that looks really good there. So I have now made it all the way down to where I'm going to stop with the fine diamond on this side. So I'm going to flip the knife over. I'm going to lay it right there just like that, with the blade held up in the air, and I'm just going to lay this sharpener on here. Do the same process on this side that I did on the initial side, and then I will move on to the next step, and I will have y'all rejoin me once I have finished this and moved on. Alright, so I have finished with the fine diamond side there, and so now I'm going to take this double stuff, this ceramic sharpener here, ceramic stone. I'm going to do the same process back and forth lengthwise on the blade. Again, still making sure that my fingers back out of the way so I don't slice myself or poke myself. That's really no fun. I have done that, and that's why I am making sure to say, keep your finger back. It's not really very much fun. But I'm just going to keep doing this with this ceramic here, removing the majority of those fine diamond scratches, making them smaller and smaller, and getting this edge more and more refined. So I'm going to do this for a minute on this side, and then I'll flip it over and do the same process on the other side with this more coarse ceramic stone here. Then I'll switch over to the fine ceramic and continue this same process until there are barely any scratches visible. So I think I've got it about as far as I want to go with that process, and that is feeling quite nice right there. So got one more step I'm going to do with this fine ceramic here, and that is to very lightly, and this is a very light process, I'm going to find that angle right there, and you can see where that stops. Find that bevel and the knife stops. I'm going to go just a little bit further, and with very light passes drag that across the ceramic, and this will form a very small bevel right on the apex of that cutting edge, but very small. When I do this, I notice very little, if any, difference in performance compared with just doing a complete zero grind, right? Keeping that exact bevel angle all the way to the apex. I notice very little performance difference between that and forming that very small bevel right on the edge. What I do notice with putting that on there is an increase in the longevity of the edge. It's a lot tougher, a lot stronger. So that's almost done. I could stop there, but I'm going to keep going. And so I'm going to get this strop right here, and I'm going to find the angle for that large bevel. All I'm going to do is drag it back and forth on this little strop, one section at a time, all the way up to the point of the blade. Back and forth, all the way up. Really for no set number of passes, just until I feel like it's enough, which is different from time to time when I do this, from one time to the next. Some knives I do this a whole bunch. Some knives I don't do very much of it at all. Just depends on the knife, how well it's being polished, how fresh the compound is on the strop. All those things influence how many times I do this. So I'm going to go back and forth, getting that broad bevel polished up pretty well. It's a pretty good polish there. Looks pretty good on that side. Could go a little further, but I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to stop there. Final step. Raise up just a little bit above that broad angle. Full length passes. Kind of easing the shoulder, the very small shoulder that formed when I did the final passes on that fine ceramic. And this will take those out and to some degree form a very small convex edge right on the apex. Back and forth. Oh yeah, that's very nice. So is it on this side? I always like to check on both sides, because as you do this process at each step, you may notice that it feels sharper from one side or the other. And if that happens, then you just even it up a little bit. It could be that maybe one side was sharpened a little bit more than the other. So do a few extra passes on that less sharpened side. But this feels pretty good. And so now I'm doing very easy passes. I'm pretty much just holding it with my fingers, just kind of laying it on there and pulling it. Mostly with just the weight of the knife, tad bit of pressure, but not much. I think that about does it. Yeah, nice and sharp. Same on both sides. Now when I'm doing this with my fingers, I'm not going this way. I'm just touching lightly and then lifting my fingers and moving to a new spot. And I usually like to use my fingers rather than my thumbs, because the fingers have, my fingers at least, have a little bit more sensitivity in this area right here than my thumbs do, so I can feel that grab just a little bit more. So I just touch that real light. It's about the same on both sides, which means there's no burr that I need to get rid of. The burr is gone if there ever even was one. And I believe that does a pretty good job. Now one final thing that you could do, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, is to make sure that it's even all the way down, there's no nicks or anything like that, is to just very lightly, and I mean lightly, just place the blade on your thumbnail and drag it. And if you feel it kind of skitter and jump, it probably means there's a roll or a chip or something like that that maybe you want to get rid of. Maybe it's not a big deal, but at least you'll know it's there. And that will help you pick up things that you might not even be able to see, because that's a very sensitive spot right there. You can feel that move, even with little imperfections that are difficult to see. But that was completely smooth. Very happy with that. No skittering whatsoever. Final thing that some people will do is to hold their thumbnail at an angle like that and place the blade on there. I could just hold it all the way back here at the end, place that on there, and I'm not really holding the knife very much, and that is stuck to my thumbnail, which means it's a very sharp edge, because it's biting into my nail just enough to keep itself from falling. And that is my process of sharpening, all done. The only thing I did not do was aggressive reprofiling, because it was unnecessary. But that would have been the exact same process of going in circles and then back and forth until I got up to the coarser, the finer sharpening surfaces. And that's a really nice edge now. We're all done. We're ready to go to work. And so now, because it's very sharp, it's going in a sheath so that it doesn't cut anything like me. But there we go, all done. Knife honed up, sharp, ready to go to work. And that's my process for getting that done. Whether I'm at home or in the field, or wherever I am, doesn't really matter. These are the tools that I use for the majority of my blade maintenance. Probably 99+% of my blade maintenance is done with these tools. But hope you enjoyed that video. Hope you found something interesting and useful out of it. If you did find it interesting, useful, and enjoyable, definitely appreciate if you hit that like button. Share a video with your friends. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber. I would appreciate that as well. And until next time, go forth, enjoy yourself, and always come home safe.